All right, everybody. Happy whatever day this is for you. It's a Wednesday for me. Whatever day it is for you, there you go. This one's about how we construct our stories and form our societies. This particular video, and it's going to be a little philosophical today, but it is what it is. So, hang on, keep your hat on. Are you sitting down? Here we go. 10,000 years ago, we're talking about pre agricultural revolution, and so we've got all these hunter gatherers, the foragers out there wandering around, etc., etc. And there were very few people who had settled down, but around 10,000 years ago, up to this point, we figured out wheat, we figured out corn and potatoes and rice, and people are going to start settling into places. So, if we were to look at the map. In the year 1, like 1, and we were to use a cartogram and talk about how, where are all the people in the world? Well, they're centered around major rivers where you can have the agriculture. So, for example, you have India and China, the Yangtze and the Indus, and then of course the Nile there in Egypt, and then obviously you have in Europe, which is just surrounded by water. You've got big Italy and Spain and France, and look, Greece is starting to fade out, and here's Italy, Turkey, and it looks like we got some Peru and a little bit of Mexico that we're having some population booms in. That's the map in the year 1 when it comes to population. All right, let's see. In the year 1, there were only 1 to 2 million foragers left. Almost everybody else was farming. It says 250 million people were farming. Okay, if you're farming, that means you're not going anywhere. And so they're going to start figuring out that I got to live somewhere. So you start building little mud huts, or you start figuring out adobe, or figuring out rocks, or you're figuring out thatches, or however you're figuring it out. And you're making yourself a house, and that is your house, and that's not your neighbor's house. Before we had the farming, everybody kind of traveled together in groups. Now that everybody's settling down, almost everybody's settling down, building houses, which means now you have to interact, or your family has this plot of land, and your neighbors have that plot of land, versus the hunter-gatherers who are out here in this nice, big, wide, open area. Kind of looks like the Windows startup thing from, what is that, Windows 95 or something? Good times. We called that Windows Chicago, by the way. Hey, it is your first random piece of trivia that you're never going to use ever in your life. So, this is a psychological issue. Staying in one spot, right? Interacting with your neighbors. Having to have common stories with your neighbors that you can talk about, that you can interact with, common beliefs. Think about the neighbors. Think about the neighbors that you hang out with, or if you do hang out with your neighbors. You might root for the same sports teams. You might not. You might root for the same school district because you may live in the same school district. You may both be of the same political party. Whatever it is, hanging out with your neighbors. If you can't do that, then you become a social pariah, which means nobody's going to like you and they're going to kick you out of the neighborhood. My downstairs neighbor thinks I'm creepy and overstep my bounds. At least that's what she wrote in her diary. We got to be nice to our neighbors. Okay, farmland. Many moons ago, well, not that, well, actually it was like thousands of moons ago. There's 200 million square miles of Earth's surface. 60 million square miles of that is land, so a whole bunch of that's ocean, right? As late as AD 1400, so we're talking about 600 years ago, up to about 600 years ago, we were only farming 2% of the surface, only 2% of the surface of the world. Up to 600 years ago. Why? Because we didn't have the tools, we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the understanding to beat out, it's too cold, it's too hot, it's too dry, it's too wet. We didn't know how to figure that out yet. until around 1400, and we're going to get the scientific revolution and the Renaissance, well, the Renaissance and the scientific revolution, and we're going to start expanding it. So this map, not that you can see it very well, but it has it shows that we're increasing the size of our farming, and so there's a long time ago, and then here's 1900, and you can see that we have a lot more people doing a lot more farming because we figured out how to beat the system, you know, like steel plows and whatever, insecticides. Okay, moving on. All right, one of the oldest cities that we know of and recently found, like in the past 10 years, 7,000 BC, so we're talking about 9,000 years ago, the city of, and I'm going to try to pronounce this, the city of Çatalhöyük. Çatalhöyük. Wow, that almost sounded good. In Anatolia, so Anatolia is Turkey. Today we call it Turkey. Unless you're maybe from Latvia, you might call it Anatolia. I don't know. What do you call the country of Turkey? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Numbered between 5,000 and 10,000 individuals, and so this might have been the largest city of the time. The largest or the oldest still functioning city is Damascus, and so that goes back almost as far back as this city. But people are still living in Damascus. They're not still living here. But we can clearly see that they had stories that they told. Here we have the mother goddess action figure made out of stone. And so when we see something like this, we see that they have their gods and goddesses, which means that they have stories, which means that they have myths, which means that they have a general agreement with regard to beliefs, which is important if you want to have a neighborhood. History. History is something that very few people have been doing while everyone else was plowing fields and carrying water buckets. It's an interesting quote. The picture here is, where is that? That's from the Roman Forum. So let's see, right over here. Right over here on those steps right there. You can't see because of the bushes. That's where Caesar was by his people, Brutus and the gang. And then there you go. It's kind of fun. The Colosseum's kind of like right over. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I had the wrong building. It's this building right there. That building right there. Right around the corner, that's where the steps are. How embarrassing. I mean, I gave a talk right there and I had the wrong building. My mistake. Hey, here's some fun history quotes. Ready? If lessons of history teach us anything, it is that nobody learns the lessons of history. Yeah. Next one says, a history teacher and his wife were sitting at a table. The wife asked, anything new at work? And he responded, no, I'm teaching history. But it's funny. Here's the last one. You can actually probably read that one. If history repeats itself, I'm so getting a dinosaur. Triceratops. That's okay. Yeah. Ooh, Allosaurus, Brontosaurus. In third grade, I knew like the names of 100 dinosaurs. I was like a dinosaur geek. Yeah, I'd probably take a dinosaur. Ooh, no, how about a Campsognosaurus, which is the little bitty ones, about like that tall, not very big. And they're in Jurassic Park 3. They're the ones that almost ate that little girl. Yeah, cool. Moving on. Now I'm thinking, no. Okay, moving on. Hey, it's Wednesday on a Wednesday and roommate. Mythology. Stories about ancestral spirits and totem poles and, sitting around the campfire. That works out great for the Dunbar number and maybe even expanding to the next level. So Dunbar is 150, maybe it goes out to 500. And that works out great for stories around the campfire. But you need bigger myths, you need bigger stories, bigger beliefs to get larger neighborhoods, larger cities, larger countries, right? And so you got to have big stories. Hey, here's a big story. Anybody recognize this guy? A couple of clues. One, he looks like a Greek. Two, he's got a sword. Three, he's got the little Hermes things on his head, the wings. And number four, he's holding the head of Medusa. That's probably the thing that gives it away. And you're all shouting out the answer. And who is that? No, not Achilles, not Diomedes, not Hercules. Starts with a P, rhymes with Perseus. Very good. I'm impressed with your ability to come up with that. All right. So most human societies, we look at it, and gosh, it's just how awkward to say this, but most human societies are all about the haves and the have-nots, right? And the haves trying to get more of what it is to make them haves, and the have-nots getting less, and the gap getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So how do you establish that some people are better than other people? How do you get people to believe that? Oh no, I'm part of the haves and you're part of the have-nots. How do you get people to believe that? Well, it's based on the stories that you tell, right? And so again, you got to have these big, far-reaching, impactful stories. The social norms that sustain them, talking about the Mesopotamia or the Roman times, were based neither on ingrained instincts nor on personal acquaintances, but rather on shared beliefs. So, for example, that one right there, that would be, who are those two kids? If I told you one of them, could you guess the other one? So this is that's a she-wolf, and then one of them's named Remus. So the other one would be, you got it, Romulus. So that's Romulus and Remus. And so if you know the story, well, there's a lot of different stories about Romulus and Remus, but they're the mythological founders of the city of Rome. And guess which twin killed the other twin? And this is when you're saying, well, obviously, Romulus killed Remus because we're talking about the Roman Empire, not the Riemann Empire. You would be correct, sir. Very good. We recognize this famous myth, this famous tale, this famous story. Let's see. The guy on the horse, it looks like at night, and he's galloping, and he's yelling at somebody in a nightgown. Well, if I were to say that was Paul Revere, then you should know that story, right? The British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming. Of course, we know that he got captured, and it was actually William Dawes and the other guys who got through, but Samuel Prescott. But this guy, he had a better press agent, so he gets the credit. The 19th of April of 75, hardly a man. No, not it's hardly. I don't even remember the poem. That tells you, Paul Revere. All right. So we're going to look at two really famous myths / stories / beliefs that have impacted human civilization. All right, and so they're both around the date of 1776. Now, one just happens to be 1776 BC, and the other is 1776 AD. So, let's see, what's the math term for that? They're both 1776 away from the year zero. There's no year zero, it's really year one. So that's absolute value. Okay, yeah, look, they're good for you. You and your math, good for you. So the absolute value of 1776. All right. So if we go backwards, we get to the Code of Hammurabi, right there, Code of Hammurabi. And then, obviously, 1776 BC, AD, we've got this little thing called the Declaration of Independence. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Babylon for a second. In 1776, Babylon, oh man, it was bad. It was the big dog on the block, not counting China or India. It was the big dog on the block over there in Mesopotamia. It basically owned all of Iraq and part of that'd be Jordan, part of Syria, and then most of Iran. And so, it was. And so, two famous stories. Let's see, that's the Tower of Babel, right? The Tower of Babel, and the ziggurat, and then they all spoke different languages out of the Bible. That's Genesis sometime. Oh, and then here, This would be the gardens, the hanging gardens of Babylon. And so one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, King Nebuchadnezzar and his wife. Well, his wife probably helped. She was probably like, I want a garden. And she was like, okay, I'll get you a garden. No, I don't want a regular garden. I want a big garden. And so then they diverted the river Euphrates through the garden. And I mean, it's pretty cool. Of course, it was burned down, but whatever. It's one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Where am I going with this? Anyway, Babylon. Big, important city. Okay. So, Nebuchadnezzar. I said it? Okay, moving on. So Hammurabi. So he's going to be one of the kings in that ancient time. And we've got Hammurabi. Here we have at the top of the stela of the Hammurabi's Code, we've got where it says that the 3 gods, Anu, Enlil, and Marduk, have come down and they've talked to Hammurabi and they've said, hey, here's a list of some really important laws that we want you to cover, that we want your people to do. So here we have laws being given by gods. So they must be important. Nope. Ooh, that's kind of hard to see. That's okay. Eye test, it's your eye test. Can you read those? Good news, I'm going to read them for you. So here are 13 of Hammurabi's codes of the 282. And I picked these. These are just kind of, I want to say random, but I picked them because they're kind of cool. Here we go. Number 1. If anyone ensnare another, putting a ban upon him, but he cannot prove it, then he that ensnared him shall be put to death. So that one says, if you accuse somebody and you can't prove it, then you get the punishment, and that punishment is death. Ooh, you better have your ducks in a row if you're going to accuse somebody. Number 2, if anyone, I'm not going to read that one, it's long, but it basically says if you accuse somebody and they get thrown in the river, all right, stop, here we go. So the Babylonians believed that the river god could judge whether you were guilty or innocent, and how the river god would do that is they would take the person and they'd throw them in the middle of the river, and then if the person sank, then they were evil, they were guilty, and if they swam to either side of the river, then they were saved by the river god, and therefore they were innocent. And I know some of you out there are thinking, well, shoot, it's a pretty big river, and got to watch the sharks. No, there's no sharks. Got to watch the alligators. No, there's no alligators. Got to watch the piranha. No, wrong side of the world, no piranha. So what's the trick? The trick is that it was against the law to learn, against the code to learn how to swim. So that's just a long way to doggy paddle if you don't know how to swim. However, if we were to go back in time, I know some of you in this class right now, you're thinking, well, I could probably swim 100 yards. On your back, just kind of swim through. Man, well, that means we could commit any crime we wanted, and then we could just be, throw me in the river, and then you swim to the side, and you're like, see, I'm innocent. There you go. Number 2 says, if you accuse somebody and they get thrown in the river and they can swim to the side, which means that they're innocent, then you get thrown into the river. That's interesting. Number 3. If anyone bring an accusation of a crime before the elders and does not prove that, I talked about that, then you get charged with death. So you got to prove what you're saying. Number 4, if anyone steal the minor son of another, he shall be put to death. So you can't steal kids. That seems like that's important. Number 5, here we go. If a son strike his father, his hand shall be hewn off. Ooh, hewn. Don't get to say that word a lot. Hewn. Hewn is when you take an axe and you chop it off. So if you strike your father, you get your hand cut off. Oh! Number 6, if a man put out the eye of another man, he shall have his eye put out. Number 7, if you knock out a tooth, you get a tooth knocked out. Oh, look at that. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I wonder if we've heard that somewhere before. Huh. But yeah, it's right there. Hammurabi's Code. Number 8, if a man strike a freeborn woman so that she lose her unborn child, he shall pay 10 shekels for her loss. Number 9, if the woman dies, he hit the woman, her unborn child dies. If he hit her and she dies, then his daughter will be put to death. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, daughter for a daughter. Number 10, if a builder builds a house for someone and does not construct it properly, and the house falls down and kills somebody, then the builder will be put to death by death by a wall falling on top of you. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, daughter for a daughter. Wall death for a wall death. Number 11, same thing with the son. Number 12, if a man give a child to a nurse, and the child dies in the nurse's care, and then the nurse grabs another child and pretends that that child is the original kid, because, dads, we don't even know what our kid looks like, and then gets found out about it, then the nurse gets her breasts cut off. Ew. And number 13, if a surgeon is doing a surgery and that surgery is unsuccessful, the surgeon loses his arm. Man, can you... that's crazy stuff. So, but here's the deal. Those 282 rules, all the tens of thousands of people who lived in Babylon and Greater Babylon, the whole area of Mesopotamia, they all acceded to that. They said, okay, those are written down. We're going to follow those rules. Why? Because the gods told Hammurabi to do it. And so, therefore, those are big-time stories with a capital S, and we're going to follow them. And if we follow them, and our neighbor follows them, and their neighbor follows them, then it's all going to be good, and everything's going to be great. Yay! Gandhi says, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. That's deep. That's like deep. Hammurabi's Code, I just said that. All right. So in Hammurabi's Code, there are 6 different type of people. There's rich people, the top. You got common people. Rich men, common men, slave men, rich women, common women, slave women. So 6 different types of people in Hammurabi's Code. Each one of them has a different punishment depending on what's going on. And or, for example, if I was a commoner and I hit somebody who is a commoner, then eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. If I hit somebody who's above me, a rich person, then the punishment is on me. If I hit somebody below me, well, I can because they're below me. That's an interesting idea. This particular set of beliefs is still going on in parts of the world. Hammurabi's Code. Yeah, I just covered that. There's a cute little Hammurabi there. All right, then we get to, let's jump 1776 twice, and we get to 1776 AD, and we get to the Declaration of Independence. And so let's see, how many different types of people are there in the Declaration of Independence? Well, if we go with Jefferson's, in that second paragraph, when we say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We know that it's really just white, male, landowning Christians, but theoretically, right? All men are created equal. This is directly in juxtaposition with, Hammurabi's Code. So Hammurabi's Code says, no, there's definitely different classes of people. Declaration of Independence says, no, we're all created equal. Well, here's the deal. Which one of those is right? Which one's right? And I know right now you're sitting here thinking, well, duh, the Declaration of Independence, we're all created equal. You gonna go with that? I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not saying that. Are you gonna go with that? Well, let's see. You realize that they're just words written down, yeah? Hammurabi's Code, Hammurabi's Code, they're chiseled in Sanskrit onto a rock. But Jefferson's words were written down on parchment. But they're just words. They're literally just words. They have no objective validity. The only validity they have is what the amount of belief that we as humans put into them. If there's only 3 of us in the United States of America who believe we are all created equal, then it doesn't work. I mean, we all have to buy into that, right? Or at least the vast majority of us have to buy into it. The vast majority of the people in Babylon bought into the Code of Hammurabi. Again, there are countries currently, right now in the year 2020, that have Hammurabi Code-esque laws. Who's right? So let's look at that. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Created equal. I mean, are we equal? And I know that this is a philosophical debate, right? Are we equal? Well, I'm sure at least one of you is faster than I am on the 100-yard dash. I'm sorry, the 100-meter dash. I'm sure at least one of you can jump higher than I can. I'm sure at least one of you is smarter. No, I'm clearly smarter. Wow. I'm sure at least one of you has a bigger ego than I do. No, I have a huge ego. I'm sure at least one of you is more handsome. No, I'm pretty handsome. Anyway, the point is, we're not physically equal. Some are faster, some are bigger, some are stronger, right? That's why we can't have girls playing boys sports. Well, no, that's not true. We can't have girls playing boys sports. We can't have boys playing girls sports unless certain qualifications are met. Okay, so we're not created equal. What is Jefferson saying? Jefferson's saying that according to the Christian values of the time, that our souls, that all souls are equal, right? So that's what the Bible says. All of our souls are equal. So we are created equal from the point of view of the Christian point of view. Okay, I'll buy that. Okay. Hammurabi's Code says, no, we are not equal. Well, there are 6 different groups of us, and some are higher than others. Okay, that's an interesting way to go also. What about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? What is happiness? I mean, what is happiness? Science will tell you happiness is whatever causes the dopamine to fill your brain and makes you go, ha. It's a chemical reaction. That's what science will tell you. Chocolate, therefore, is happiness because chocolate floods your brain with dopamine, right? It's supposed to. What is happiness? I guarantee you right now in the year 2020 on this Wednesday, this is November 4th, right now it's 2:20 in the afternoon and we still don't know who the next president of the United States is going to be. I guarantee you that there are a whole bunch of people who are biting their nails right now and they are not happy. Whichever side they are on, in fact on both sides because nobody knows right now how it's going to go. So happiness. Interesting. Imagined orders. So we're talking about these stories. Code of Hammurabi, the Declaration of Independence. Imagined orders are not evil conspiracies or useless mirages. Rather, they are useful to get large numbers of humans to cooperate effectively. If we believe that we're all created equal, that we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and enough of us believe this story, that Jefferson wrote down, well then it works for us. It works for us. If it worked for Hammurabi, that eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and a daughter for a daughter, and a wall death for a wall death, and people cutting off parts of themselves, well then, great, it worked for them. But we all have to buy in. Voltaire has an interesting quote. He says, if people realize that human rights exist only in the imagination, isn't there a danger that our society will collapse? Voltaire said about God, now this is Voltaire talking, he says, there is no God, but don't tell that to my servant, lest he murder me at night. Don't tell that to my servant, lest he murder me at night. Voltaire recognizes that the vast majority of people believe in God, and if you buck that system, if you go against that system, you're not part of the neighborhood. and you're going to get kicked out, or your servant's going to come murder you at night. What is the system that we believe in? Again, here we are, November 4th, 2020. We had the election last night. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe by the time you guys see this next Monday, maybe we'll know who the president is. Na 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 na, whoever that is, and we'll go from there. But here's the problem, right? In the United States of America right now, we have two competing stories. We should let anybody who wants to come in. No, we should only have certain people come in to our borders. We should allow abortions. We should not allow abortions. We should only allow certain types of abortion. Everybody should own a gun. Nobody should own a gun. We should have certain rules for people who have guns. We should have health care free for everybody. No, we should have we should have private insurance. We should have more taxes so that the people who are not doing as well as others can be lifted up by the people who are doing well. No, we should not have more taxes because you're on your own for the American dream. We have two sets of competing ideas out there. And let's see, we have Black Lives Matter. No, all lives matter. No, blue lives matter. No, teacher lives matter. Teacher lives do matter. Right? If history has taught us anything, and remember, nobody pays attention to the history teachers, and then that's the whole joke about it. If history has taught us anything, if we don't get our acts together, right, we're going to. Hey, on that exciting note, let's wrap this up and go from there. All right, have a good day and go Team America. You guys be good. I'll see you later.